Alright, hey guys, this is Team Bond and we're working on our final project Postmortem. We decided to do a little bit of a podcast here. So we have Vanessa,
Hi.
we have Aaron,
Hey.
we have Elias,
Hey.
and we have Gordon Lewis.
Hello.
Alright, so, we were 4 months into our final project and we're at the very end and we're going to discuss to you guys and amongst ourselves about what we did in the past 4 months. And we started off with RAM, which is research and marketing. And that involved a lot of just research overall on what kind of games that we wanted to do. Our instructor was Fernando, and he challenged us. One was that we had to come up with 3 ideas. The ideas was basically subconscious that we came up with, the Bond and Spirited Toys. Fernando enjoyed the Bond, and we also did. And that was actually started up by Aaron. He kind of came up with the idea. Aaron, you want to give a little bit more on the scope?
Yeah, sure. When we came up with the idea for the Bond, we utilized some of the lessons that we'd been taught in previous classes, where we wanted to start with the aesthetic of the game first, and then come up with the dynamics, then the mechanics from there. So we started out with the aesthetic, and we wanted to come up with something that was going to be really emotionally evocative. And one of the most powerful concepts that we were able to come up with that everyone experiences is the bond between a mother and child. So we wanted to create a game that was highly narrative driven, based around that aesthetic and emotion, and we ended up going with a game that had asymmetric gameplay, where you played both as a mother and a child, and we wanted to put them in a lot of very emotionally trying situations.
And with that, we actually had to come up with a video presentation for that, and that consisted of just like you mentioned, like Aaron mentioned, the presentation with concepts and whatnot.
So one of the first things we did after we came up with the high concept of the game and decided what we were actually going to be doing, we started working on the mechanics for the games themselves. So we came up with a component interaction matrix first. What that is where we list all of the items in the game, all the mechanics, basically everything that's going to be in the game and how they interact with each other. So each item is laid out in a spreadsheet with how it interacts with every other item in the game. So we have a clear idea of how everything works. The next is the IPM chart, which shows where in the game mechanics are going to be introduced, when the game, the player should be proficient with them, and when they should have mastered them. So we can have a clear sense of ramping and rewards. And last is, of course, the GDD, or the game design document, where we list absolutely everything from the game, from storyboards to the narrative of the game, to all the mechanics, every little detail. It is a living document, so that gets edited along the way, and we add from it and remove things from it from here and there. But it's a place where everything can be placed, so we have a clear record of everything that's going on. Everyone can keep up to date exactly what the game is at the time.
Yes, and a lot of editing did have to be done to that. Alright, Final Project 1. The very beginning of all the hard work that was put into this game. We had to come
So
up.
it began.
Yes, so it begins. The ideas are just the beginning. We had to do the structuring of the game. There was a lot of stuff that the team decided to go through first, and one of that was actually the level walkthroughs. Not only did our game kind of just consist of obstacles and movement and interaction, it required a lot of just a layout of what the game was going to hold and consist of throughout each level. We also did a product backlog, and that was basically all the, what would you say, meshes, sounds, particles.
All the assets
Every asset that we would need entirely.
Exactly. All that stuff we had to throw in there and calculate when we needed it and what percentage it was at. We also had core mechanics, and that was something that Elias did a lot of work on. He put a lot of things together, and we will talk a little bit more about that. We also had level prototypes. Like I said, obstacles, movement, interaction.
Blue bots.
More ideas.
Woo.
Yes, as the week began and continued, Justin Gallo, as our instructor, and kind of took the ideas and concepts of what we wanted in the game, and he showed us how to go about doing those. One was spider webs, and Lewis did a really good job on that.
Well, for all of our additions that we added, we had to put them all into the prototype and have them functioning properly within the prototype to make sure they would work well in the game that we'd be making. This included the spider webs, guards, and spotlights. Everything that we did get added to the prototype that functioned well, we did put into the game. So this is kind of our testing ground to make sure they all did work.
It was our magical sandbox for the next few months.
Yeah.
We spent most of this first month in the prototype, so
Oh yeah, definitely.
not really working on the levels.
We did also experience the issues with what we wanted to implement. A few of them were spotlights and deaths. That was causing a lot of problems. The spotlights, they tended to not work with us as much as we wanted to work with it, and it was something that we were adamant on getting in. Scripting mechanics. We had issues with scripting. We had Faye and Victor with the same identity. Elias, you want to elaborate a little bit more on identities, even though one was a male and one was a female?
Well, both characters were made from the same player controller, but the pawn itself was just one script. And we originally had it where it was two separate pawns being spawned in, and the control of one would swap when you pressed a certain key. Well, the problem we were having is if one would die, it wouldn't respawn the other one. Or if you had spawned in the game and you didn't swap yet and your original player died, it would cause a crash, and then you'd have to redo the whole thing. Well, we switched it to where it was the single script that had both pawn identities inside of it. And the problem with that is now that it's just one pawn, no matter what you would do, that always that one class was getting called. So I had to come up with a special trigger that would fire off on those variables that would say which script was Faye and which one was Victor.
Alright, Final Project 2. This instructor was Ricardo. He helped us a lot on just getting the game put together. He had us working out on levels first. From the idea to the actual map, we did level constructions, and this was the point where our prototype that we put so much work into was going to be put aside, and the actual
Finally
game,
laid to rest.
exactly, and the actual levels were going to be put together. How many did we initially come up with? We came up with 10 levels, correct?
10.
Yeah.
Yep.
10, 10.
I personally thought that was too little, but with what we had in regards to level designing, it was plenty. More than what we were actually going to bite off.
Right, Ricardo actually said that we should lower the number of levels or we were going to dig our own grave.
Yeah.
Good thing we didn't. So this first week, first couple weeks, we were dealing with the set dressing, basic lighting, some simple post-processing to add the ambiance of one of our levels, which involved a lot of fire. And with a lot of fire came a lot of particles, and with a lot of particles came a lot of lagging. So we did experience a lot of problems when we decided to put things together. And as you see there, 7 levels in 4 weeks.
And we definitely experienced some trouble in the first week. We kind of didn't know what pace to give ourselves, and it kind of bit us in the butt that week. So we were able to pull it together for the rest of the month and knock out the rest of the levels really well, I think. So
Yes.
it's good that we could overcome that.
And along these 4 weeks, we were actually encountered by some sound developer students, and I guess they got information about the games and they volunteered on helping us. So they collaborated with us on getting some sounds into our game and making it just more unique than what we were going to anticipate for this game. Aiding in visualizations, we had on-screen character indicators. We also had object interaction shaders, and that involved a lot of scripting by, once again, Mr. Elias Jones.
With the on-screen character indicators, the inspiration for that came from a game like Left 4 Dead, where you can see all of the AI or other players' locations at all times by highlighted material that is around the shape of their body. How I did this is I actually created a duplicate mesh on the pawn. So when the player's controlling a specific character, it has actually two skeletal meshes on top of each other, and one is set invisible unless it's occluded. And then if it's occluded, it has this material applied to it, red for Faye and blue for Victor. And we did the same thing for the objective indication shaders. If the player's line of sight touched them, it would turn red if it was Faye and blue if it was Victor. And it activates for both pawns to be able to give players a little bit of direction as to what they need to be doing.
We originally had particle lights, like a little orb. That would be the object interaction indicator. But instead, Ricardo felt like that was just kind of not mixing well with the feel of the game, so that's why we came up with the interaction shaders. At first it was something that we wanted to do, we just didn't know how to go about doing it, and with a little bit of help we were able to implement that. And unfortunately the spotlights did not work with us as much as we wanted it to.
Mostly that was due to the implementation of the mechanic and also finding a proper static mesh or skeletal mesh that would also work with it.
Final Project 3. This involved a lot of polishing. At the same time, we actually got with a music guy. His name was Chris Gloria. He's also a student at Full Sail. And he heard about a game and he wanted to actually make music for a game. And we were very honored to have him join us and work with us this entire month. Put a lot of work into it. Each level has their own soundtrack. We actually have a very own soundtrack for this game. Is that 9 levels?
7 levels.
7 levels, yes. 7 levels with credits.
We know what we're talking about.
Yes, we do. We do. He's been just a great help with everything in regards to just aiding in the ambiance feeling of our game and polishing. And that was actually a lot of Vanessa. It involved a lot of set dressing.
I took every level. I went into the world properties and I disabled a ton of the post-processing things that are already in UDK when you make levels. And disabled those, took screenshots of the levels, pretty much bare bones, imported that into Photoshop. From there, I basically created an entirely new color grading lookup table per level, that would enhance different things like colors and grade on the ground, walls, and it just overall took the game to a whole new level and really made things pop and look grainy instead of washed out. I made one for every single level, and it looks a lot better than what it did prior.
It does. It adds in making the game not look too generic. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, and it makes it a lot easier to go into Photoshop and take a little screenshot and basically make the level look from that screenshot how you want it to look, and then implement one single thing into UDK and create your own lookup table, then to go into our world properties, adjust every single one to the effect that you desire.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it so much easier.
Amongst all that, we did a lot of swapping with our static meshes. We used a lot of the generic stuff, and it was finally this class that we got information about the server with the static meshes from Full Sail, and that's when we were able to start putting things in and just making it more unique and more personalized than your default UDK static meshes that were given to us.
Yeah, we went through and used about 20 so different packages that were on the asset server to make the game have a different feel than just the assets that are already in UDK for you to use. It makes it look not so generic.
So there's a little insight about our final project, The Bond, and what we've been going through for the past 4 months. The team has really enjoyed putting this game together, and thanks for watching.